All right, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. It's good to see everyone here. My name is Tim Nelson. I'm the Director of Enterprise Data and Intelligence for Office Depot Corporation. So just to give you a little bit of idea of what we do, we're an IT organization that's responsible for collecting all the data from inside and outside the company, putting it in a central location, preparing it with aggregation strategies and business rules, and then putting tools like Cognos, Tableau on top of it so that our analytics teams can take that data and make decisions and do data science and things like that. So we have a central IT organization that's accountable for collecting data and preparing data, and then we have a central center of excellence of analytics that's accountable for doing the data science. Okay, so with me today is my colleague.
Hi, I'm Terry Campbell, Principal Cloud Architect for the Enterprise Data Intelligence team. I've really been enjoying the conference and the city, but I gotta be honest, I can't wait to get back to my good weather in Florida.
Okay. That's right, so Office Depot is located in South Florida, Boca Raton. It never gets colder than 70 degrees, but we have not let this cold weather scare us here in New York. Yesterday, Terry was out exploring, checking on all the local retail, and he managed to acquire a $10,000 Rolex for 40 bucks.
Chinatown, Tim, Chinatown.
So, you know, I'm still gonna do some analytics on that transaction. Something seems fishy about it. I ran it through a machine learning algorithm last night and it got kicked over into the fraud detection queue. So I'm pretty sure that's not real, Terry. So, okay, before we jump into our topic, which is the retail analytics struggle, that struggle is real. Let me just tell you a little bit about Office Depot. So I've been with Office Depot for 15 years. We've always been a provider of office supplies and products, and I'm sure you all know that. You can come to us through our stores, you can come to us through the web. If you're a contract customer, you can come through our sales force, and we have call centers for direct as well. What you may not know is we've been on a 2-year transformation. We have strive as a company to deliver all solutions for a business. And we've started that with an acquisition of a company called CompuCom that has 6,000 IT service professionals. In addition to that, we launched our Workonomy platform where we're providing marketing services, back office support, payroll, bookkeeping. Of course, we offer print services, pack and ship. So again, we're much more than office supplies and products. We're really looking to serve all business customer needs. Okay, so the struggle. So the traditional EDW struggle. So a quick question of the audience, and I can barely see, I'm getting blinded by these spotlights, but how many folks are users of an analytical system in their company? In other words, they consume data that comes out of a data warehouse, or they consume reports?
Looks like most of the room, Tim.
All right, most of the room? Okay. So just to give you an idea, at Office Depot, we're a very data-driven company. And we talked about this transformation and journey that we're on. It's all driven by data to make sure those decisions we're making are sound. In fact, Office Depot has 6,402 active daily users of our data warehouse every single solitary day. Can you imagine that? So that's literally every corporate employee. That's our sales force. That's our store managers. Everyone is using that data to make data-driven decisions. If I go back in time, about approximately 2 years ago, and I start to talk about where we're at and how we are struggling, and then remember that everyone's trying to use this data, we had a traditional EDW approach. Our data warehouse was sitting in a data center in Charlotte, so we had a central MPP, massive parallel processing system. These are examples of these are like Teradata, Netezza. How many people are still in their, maybe you don't know, but how many people are still in their data center and leveraging an existing tool like Netezza or Teradata? How many people have actually out of their data center completely and are already up on the cloud? How many people don't know at all? It doesn't matter, and you just need the data. Okay, awesome. Okay, so what are the struggles with this approach? When you buy a traditional data warehouse solution, you're buying a finite amount of capacity. In other words, 3 years ago, I would say I need this much space and I need this much compute, and I would hope for the best that it would meet the needs of the business. Of course, as you guys know, retail demand and reporting demand fluctuates. We have peak periods, seasonal periods. We have Monday mornings where everyone wants to see how the previous week went. So when I have that whole system and everyone comes at once, it's inevitable that we're going to get a delay queue and concurrency problems in the morning because there's not enough resources to go around. This also creates a perception of inconsistent runtimes. How many people run a report in the morning or receive a report in the morning and it takes forever to get, but maybe in the afternoon it comes much quicker, right? So people think, oh, the system's broken. How come I'm waiting? Oftentimes you're sitting in a delay queue waiting for resources to come. Another change that we've seen is the sizes of data. So Kashif's team, who's with our Center of Excellence of Analytics, they came to me a couple years ago, and at the time we had a max of 50 terabytes size in our data warehouse. And they came to us with a problem that required petabytes of data, and there's 1,000 terabytes in a petabyte. So obviously, there's not even a solution for that in our existing plan. So we start to do things like we stand up Hadoop clusters, we stand up separate architecture, and next thing you know, we're pushing data all over the place. And is anyone in here in the data science role, maybe power user role? So what happens is now my data's all over the place, and rather than spending time doing my analytics, I spend there's a statistic that says 80% of the time that a data scientist spends is actually wrangling the data and finding where it is throughout the organization, cleansing the data, instead of doing the other way of 80% analytics. And that's because as a result of the system being too small, we're pushing data all over the place. Another thing with these systems is they actually work very fast. Teradata and Netezza, they're very fast systems. They work with SQL, which most people that are in the data space know SQL pretty well. But what you don't know is you almost have to be a DBA to get them to work quickly, especially if you're loading tables. You have to know how to define a primary index, you have to know how to do statistics, and you have to know how to do an indexing strategy in order to get the query to run fast. Most users don't know how to do that, so there's a perception again, you know what, this system's just slow and stinks, and we need a system that just works. Did anyone go down the Hadoop? Does anyone in here know how to program in Pig and Hive and things like that? Neither do I. Terry probably does. But the reality is, most of us that are working with analytics, we know SQL. So we need a tool that works with SQL. All of our legacy platforms, they use SQL to talk to the database. We don't want to switch to new languages. We want to use the language of data, which is SQL. Another challenge that we've all had is the data in our dev environment. Because these systems were millions and millions of dollars to purchase, we couldn't afford to have a complete, at least at Office Depot, we couldn't afford to have a complete replica of our production environment. So we had an environment that was 1/3 the size of production, the data wasn't kept up to date, and basically all the testing that was done off stale data, and oftentimes we would get to production and realize there was a miss, or people would just pretend that they tested in dev, and we would go to production. I'm just kidding, Kasha. So again, we didn't have a good way to test because of the cost. And then finally, with all the code changes that we have going on, just me at Office Depot, right now I have 82 developers working for me. In the business, there's something like 240 analysts in the Center of Excellence, 10 or 15 data scientists. But it's inevitable that code will get pushed to production and make a mistake. So there's times where we've taken an entire data set and overwritten it with bad data, only to realize, oh my gosh, we screwed up because we didn't get good testing, and we have to back that data out and then restore. And next thing you know, there's been times where we've lost a day worth of analytics because we screwed up the data. Okay, so fortunately for everybody, the cloud came along. So everyone's heard of the cloud? Everyone knows what the cloud is? The cloud is your data center, except it's not your data center. It's an Amazon data center, or it's an Azure data center, or it's a Google data center, and it has more servers and more capacity than anyone in this room can even imagine. So by having and by the way, you can access those servers as you need them. You can procure them, you can scale up, you can use tools like Docker to expand how much you need, or you can contract what you don't need. But basically, rather than going into your data center with a forklift and dropping in machines, this is just readily available to you. So that is why the cloud is important. The cloud is also important because we're all working in one space. our software as a service providers, even companies like Snowflake, they can develop their applications in the same cloud that we're working in, and then we can leverage them. So if I have a central repository of all my data, I can use tools like Data Robot. I can use, there's a whole myriad of software as a service tools. So I want to be able to connect into those, not have to do all the maintenance, and still be able to use my data safely and securely. I want to be able to access that central data repository with my existing tools, Tableau, Cognos, MicroStrategy. I don't want to have special tools just to talk to them. I want my in-memory solutions to be able to extract data so that I can get speed of thought analytics. And I want to, something that's really changed is we used to do everything with our traditional ELT, and now we want to do more, and that would come in almost on a batch nightly basis. But we want to be able to use tools like Kafka that can stream data in near real time and provide more timely insights depending on what we're working on, especially in the web space. So if you see the center of our diagram, we have this space of where the data needs to go. Companies have been solving this with multiple tools. Let's go get HDFS, which is a platform of Hadoop. Let's go get a Teradata IntelliCloud solution. And again, they're starting to spread out these solutions. When we were doing this, we said, no, we want to have one database available, and we want to be able to handle petabytes of space. We want to be able to create a data lake in this environment, not have a separate environment for data lake. And what we did is we looked at all the players in the market. We looked at Teradata IntelliCloud. We looked at Microsoft SQL Data Warehouse. We looked at Google BigQuery. We looked at Amazon Redshift. And we looked at a product called Snowflake. And what we found is, yeah, you can go to the cloud, but when you leverage one of those existing vendors that we already have known, the Teradatas, the Netezas, even Redshift is based on a product called Actian that's an on-prem solution. All they've taken is their software and they've installed it on EC2 servers in the cloud. And you're still bound to a single set of architecture. And when you need to scale up and scale down, you can't do it because it's the same old software simply running in the cloud. Other tools like Google BigQuery allow you to draw on more resources as you need it, but they were lacking a lot of the traditional needed support to actually run an enterprise data warehouse. And what we found, there was one tool that was built for the cloud, an analytic data warehouse solution called Snowflake, that allowed us to handle all sizes and types of data, be elastic, and still had all the functionality we were used to. So now I'm going to hand it over to Terry Campbell, who's going to tell us a little bit about why we chose Snowflake.
Thank you, Tim. So why was Snowflake right for Office Depot? Well, first and foremost, it was based on ANSI SQL. So we could leverage our existing skill sets and tools that our user and enterprise already had. All right, we leveraged the 15 years of data warehouse prep that we put in there, where Office Depot has created a true single source of the truth data warehouse where the data in our financial systems match the data coming in from our sales systems. Our workforce did not have to learn a new language. All right, they could leverage what they already knew. We didn't have to rewrite ETL processes. We could just load the data into a different platform and use it. Our reporting systems just worked with minimal change. Cognos, Tableau, those reports and dashboards worked without a lot of effort. The next thing we had to address was concurrency. So how did we do that? Snowflake has an architecture that they call multi-clustered shared data. And it's a pay-as-you-go, so pay for only what you use. In that architecture, the multi-cluster is where the CPU usage is. So what you can do is set up a cluster, which is basically CPU resources, that you can set that up for individual departments, users, or processes, and whatever they do doesn't affect what somebody else does. I can set up a warehouse for my marketing team, for my merchandising team. I can set it up for an individual developer I wanted. And whatever that developer does is not going to affect what the merchandising or marketing team does. And they're all sharing the same data, right? It's really a paradigm shift there. What's really cool about these warehouses as well is they adapt to the workload. So if marketing needs additional resources, the warehouse will realize, hey, I've got a heavy workload. It'll add a node to that cluster. All right, and it'll scale that cluster up. If it needs to add 2, it'll add 2, and it'll scale to the limit. You can let it go forever, or you can put a limit on it, and it'll scale up. As that workload diminishes, it will scale down all the way to where 0, there's nothing running. And at that point, you're not paying for the CPU anymore. So you don't have to worry about this buying capacity on Mondays and letting it sit, and you're only using 10% the rest of the week. You scale it up, use it when you need it, shut it down. Snowflake does this all automatically. Additionally, with the separation of compute and storage, you can add storage at will, and it's fairly inexpensive. I mean, I almost think of it as free, and I mean, nothing's free, right? But at $23 a terabyte a month, it's very inexpensive to add storage to the system. So those are really paradigm-changing features that Snowflake's got there. Additionally, Snowflake was built for the cloud from the ground up. All right, data security is something that we are concerned about across all organizations. The data is encrypted at rest in Snowflake and in transit. There's no way of getting data out of Snowflake in plain text. All right, it's really an awesome concept there. Going down the line there are no management tasks. So as Tim mentioned earlier, one of the struggles is you got to make sure your users know how to use their data, how to create an index, how to join the data, right? Those are all challenges we have with our data scientists or data analysts. You don't have to worry about that. There are no indexes in Snowflake. Right? There's no vacuuming. Right? There's no reason to collect statistics. Right? All that goes away. Right? The management tasks are nil. All right? So not only that, when you want to upgrade your system, in the past it's a 6-7-figure endeavor. Today with Snowflake you don't have to. All that management, all that database upgrade is handled in the background for you. Snowflake does that. Right? It's really awesome. Snowflake also supports semi-structured data natively. So you hear all this machine streaming, device data coming in. Snowflake handles that semi-structured data in the JSON format, Avro, Parquet, Excel. It handles that automatically. All right? It knows from the schema that comes with the data how to prepare it, and you can load it into your data warehouse and make it available to your structured data almost immediately and get business value quickly. All right? It's a very, very good concept there. Tim also mentioned one of the struggles is setting up a proper QA or test environment. Snowflake has a feature called zero-copy cloning that allows you to create an environment to do your development and testing almost instantaneously. By the way, that snap was louder when I practiced. All right, but almost instantaneously. And you can leverage your production data and have a copy of that, run your models, run your algorithms, see how it performs, and then another clip, it's gone. You know what you got? You can start over. And you're only paying for the average amount of storage you're using. All right, it's really an awesome feature. No longer do you have a 1/3 dev system that you can use. You have a fully functioned dev system. You can spin up CPU, use it, only pay the CPU when you're using it, shuts down, you're done, all you pay for that additional storage, and if you delete that data you cloned, you're not paying for that any longer either. It's really an awesome feature. One feature that I also want to mention that's not on the slide here is called time travel. Tim mentioned another struggle. When you deploy code, there's all kinds of coordination that go on, and inevitably, sometimes that goes wrong. I mean, we strive in IT really to make sure that gets right. Sometimes it goes wrong, we corrupt data. With the time travel feature, you can roll back your data. Again, it's almost instantaneous, back to what it looked like before you ran that process, before you changed that process, right? And you can get your business users back up and running and using that data very quickly. The last feature I want to talk about here is called the Share House. Share House allows you to share data with your external partners without moving that data around. No longer do you have to create an extract file, compress it, encrypt it, hand it off to an admin team that's going to FTP it over to another endpoint where they've got to reverse engineer that whole process, load the data, and then that end user can use it. Snowflake's got this concept called the Share House. You can create secured views that are secured through Snowflake's role-based security, so only the people you grant access have access to it. And then through your partner Snowflake account, they can query that data in the secured area using JDBC and ODBC standard database connectivity. All right, and it makes very easily the ability to share data. So it's those features that made Snowflake right for Office Depot. What I'd like to do now is share just a few of the recent wins we've had with the functionality in Snowflake. The first one I want to mention is we leveraged the Share House functionality to create an assortment or to work with our assortment, space, and price optimization system with our service provider TCS. we were able to create 30 to 35 integrations in a matter of days and weeks instead of weeks and months. All right? And this was a multi-cloud effort. So we had the data in one cloud, we had the AI and ML system in another cloud, and we were sharing that data back and forth, and Snowflake made that very easy. I think AWS was one of the clouds, Azure was the other, and we're able to share that data across the clouds very easily. It's really awesome functionality there. Another example where the struggle of getting amount of data into your organization, right? We were limited with space. When you buy up front, you say, hey, I need this much space. And when that space is used, you spend a lot of time archiving, purging, and managing that space. All right, we had an opportunity at Office Depot. We wanted to bring in our Google Analytics data, join it with our existing structured data, and see what analysis we could get out. Let our data scientists add and see if there's anything we're missing, right? So the request came in, hey, I need to add 10 terabytes of data. In the old paradigm, we couldn't do that without a 6-7 digit investment to upgrade our core system. With Snowflake, we loaded it in using their semi-structured data support. We loaded the data right into the database, and it was available to our end users almost immediately. It was very, very cool concept. Pay as you use. One of the use cases that we've found is we have to archive systems from time to time. And actually, we merge with Office Max, so we have a lot of Office Max systems that we want to archive. And instead of putting those on tape at $23 a terabyte, again, it's not free, but it's very, very inexpensive. We can put those database structures and the data in Snowflake, and when a request comes in, whether it be a legal request, a request from an old customer, for a receipt or a PO, we spin up a warehouse, we pay for that CPU for the minute we run the query, and then we shut it down, we're done. All right? That's a very cool concept and enables a lot of things there. Last thing I want to tell you about is we can quantify costs very easily. So we were asked to move an affinity process off our on-premise Actian per Excel environment, where we create product affinity and customer affinity. All right? We were able to move that process off our per Excel environment in a matter of hours. I think it took 3 to 4 hours, Tim, if I remember, right? And we were able to move that off, run that process, very minimal change on Snowflake, and we're able to quantify it for the business. And we went back to the business and said, hey, this process costs you $6 a day to run. So now they know what it costs them, all right? Think about the doors this open. You can go to your leadership and to your business partners and say, this is what it can cost you to run a process. Not only that, instead of IT becoming a cost center, you can actually tell the business, this is what you're costing to run your processes, right? It's valuable information, and it's easy to start up and shut down processes. All right, so that's a few of the recent wins we've had. What I'd like to do now is open it to any questions if anybody has any. Just raise your hand and we'll get somebody to you. If not, enjoy the rest of NRF.
Yeah. No, actually, if no one has any questions, the way I know there's a lot of business folks in the room, and what I would really like to do in order to summarize what it's for, Snowflake allows you guys to work and do your job and just gets IT out of the way. We no longer have to say no, we just say go. That just rhymed to sound corny, but literally, it just gets us out of the way. It lets you go as fast as you want to go. It lets you work with all of your data, and we didn't have to start over from scratch. We leveraged everything we had. It's really been a game changer for Office Depot, and like Terry shared, it's just very
You only
exciting
pay for what you use.
So, the question? So,
One second, Tim. The question was, how many people in the organization work on the Snowflake? Okay.
So just
on the IT side. On the IT side.
Okay. So just to break it down, so we have right now, because we're doing a lot of migration to the cloud. My team's at 82 people, which is a little large. We have 50 individuals that work for me. Half of them are doing support, keeping the environment running, and then the other half are bringing in new integrations. Because Office Depot is transforming so much, we're bringing all these products and services, we're acquiring companies, there's a tremendous amount of effort right now to bring more and more data into the system. And again, because it's so easy to do, there's no setup, it's just simple. So we have, I think, if I remember, I have 62 active projects going for the business, bringing data in. So again, and then beyond that, there's a handful of DBAs, It's nothing like we used to have in the past. There's a couple DBAs, they implement the DDL, they apply security, and they monitor costs.
Right, and then from an admin perspective, no longer do you need an OS admin or a storage admin, right? That additional work goes away, it's not there.
So we used to have about 7 DBAs, 2 onshore, 5 offshore in our legacy environment, and right now we're running with about a DBA and a half. So
the question was, how long did we spend capacity planning?
So the question was, how long did you spend capacity? I'm sorry, Terry just said it.
That's all right.
So the interesting thing about Snowflake is rather than planning capacity for the entire ecosystem, you start planning project by project. What is this project going to cost? How much compute? And you start to really be able to give a true cost of a project. That's one change. One of the things is you don't want to just turn the warehouses over to the users and just say, no, Snowflake would like that, right? And just say, go, go, go. Because next thing you know, they'll be using systems that are 20 times larger than your current environment just for themselves, and they'll be running everything in like a few seconds, which is great. Or maybe they're setting up the configuration to not auto shut down after 1 second. And some of the other companies have spent more than we have, and we've been sharing our techniques about auto shutdown, auto scaling, that you can actually load all data sets with extra small data warehouses that are a couple dollars an hour to run. So our costs have reduced by easily to 2/3 by going to this
right. And
environment.
Leo, I would just like to say,
Plus,
it changes the way you look at it.
We have infinite more data and many more processes running, plus all of our legacy.
Right, I was just going to add, it changes the way you look at capacity planning, right? As Tim said, you look at it on a project level, right, rather than an entire organization level, right? And again, you only pay for what you use, which is a beautiful thing there. Any other questions?
All right.
All right. Thank you all very much.
All right,
Enjoy the
thanks,
rest
everybody.
of the show.